Survival games are everywhere, but most of them fall apart fast or drown in busy work. In this video, we're running through 8 killer survival games that actually get it right. Whether it's clever mechanics, great pacing, or just a world you just don't want to leave, they're all definitely worth your time. So let's jump into the first game of this list. Enshrouded is one of those rare early access games that already feels like it knows what it's going for. It mixes crafting, climbing, and survival with just enough direction to keep you moving, without stripping away the freedom that makes the genre fun in the first place. The world is covered in a creeping fog called the Shroud, and venturing into it is where things get dangerous fast. Visibility drops, mutated enemies start showing up, and your time inside is limited unless you've built the right gear to stay longer. That push and pull between staying safe and diving deeper into the mist is what gives the whole game its pacing. Building in Enshrouded is easy to get into and surprisingly flexible. You can reshape the terrain, place structures with real accuracy, and upgrade your base to unlock better gear and new crafting NPCs. And since most of your progress ties back to that base, it ends up being something you constantly come back to and build around, not just something you drop and forget. Co-op helps smooth out a lot of the slower parts. One player can scout ahead, another handles building, someone else gathers resources, and that split makes the whole progression loop feel more natural and a lot less grindy. The combat leans more toward light RPG action, enough dodging and spellcasting to make you pay attention, but not so much that it gets in the way of everything else. It's not trying to be hardcore, but it surely demands your attention. If you're into survival games that give you room to explore, build, and actually chase something bigger than your hunger bar, Enshrouded is already in a great spot, and it's only getting better. Stranded Deep is all about small wins and slow decisions. You start out floating in a life raft after a plane crash, armed with nothing but a paddle and whatever supplies you can scavenge nearby. There's no intro sequence or checklist to walk you through the first day, you just hit the shore and figure it out from there. The survival part leans more on planning than quick decisions, so you'll be boiling water in makeshift stills, crafting spears out of sticks, and organizing coconuts like their currency. Every island has limited resources and most don't respawn, so staying put eventually stops being an option. To move forward, you'll have to build a raft, stock up, and head into open water, usually without knowing what's ahead. Get used to sharks, storms, and flipped rafts, as it's never as simple as just picking a direction and going. And when it comes to crafting, it's pretty simple and stays fairly grounded. There's no massive tech tree, but you'll gradually work your way from tarp shelters and driftwood tools, to farming, fuel distillers, and even a gyrocopter, if you're willing to hunt down the parts. There's no in-game map and no markers. Navigation is done with a compass, landmarks, and guesswork. It's easy to get turned around or land on the wrong island entirely, but that uncertainty is part of what makes exploration feel risky in a way many survival games don't quite capture. Stranded Deep doesn't throw much at you up front, but the deeper you go, the more it rewards players who plan, adapt, and pay attention.
Is everything all right?
Yeah, you can come up.
You do know you have the walkie-talkie, right?
Green Hell takes survival further than most. You begin alone in the Amazon rainforest with barely any gear and no real direction. Survival here isn't just about staying alive, it's about paying attention to the details. What kind of food you're eating, how clean your water is, and whether your injuries are actually healing or just temporarily patched up. Even your mental state needs attention, which is tough when you're sleep-deprived, bleeding, and halfway through an argument with your campfire. Systems don't come pre-packaged. You learn them by trial, error, and observation. Healing items come from specific plants, clean water requires boiling or filtration, and even starting a fire means gathering the right pieces and protecting them from the rain. Everything takes effort, and everything has a consequence. There's a full story mode if you want a little more direction, but survival mode drops you in with just a notebook and leaves you to figure it out yourself. Co-op gives you more hands to work with, which makes building and gathering faster, but it doesn't ease the challenge much. If anything, it just means more mouths to feed and more things to manage. You can build up a base over time with proper shelter, storage, and tools to make the day-to-day smoother. Just don't get too comfortable. This game loves reminding you who's in charge. Green Hell is tough, but not in a way that feels unfair. It expects you to pay attention and learn from your mistakes. If you're looking for survival that stays intense without ever slipping into autopilot, this one holds up pretty damn well.
I could use some climbing gear.
Is there nothing you can use?
I'm not having much luck. I'll let you know if I find anything.
The Long Dark is survival stripped down to its most basic form. You're alone in the Canadian wilderness, no tutorials, no quest markers, and barely enough supplies to get through the night. There's no big catastrophe playing out, just you, the cold, and whatever you manage to scavenge before the weather turns worse. Every decision matters because the game never steps in to help. If you forget to bring matches, you could freeze to death, and if you hike too far without food or a backup shelter, you might not make it back. There's no background music pushing you forward or scripted moments to raise the stakes, just the wind, your footsteps, and the occasional wolf that might already be tracking your scent. Once you learn the basics, the real game starts to open up. You're not just surviving day to day anymore. You're planning routes between regions, stashing emergency gear, checking the weather, and figuring out how long you can afford to stay in one spot before cabin fever kicks in. Most of the tension comes from small, practical problems. Like how many hours of daylight you have left if the meat is still frozen, and can you really risk crossing the lake again with those weak ice patches? There's a full story mode as well, centered around a bush pilot named Will Mackenzie who crashes in the aftermath of a strange Aurora event. It walks you through the game's mechanics with scripted scenarios and voice-acted dialogue, but it still holds on to the game's core survival pacing. The Long Dark isn't about unlocking perks or stacking upgrades. Progress is about foresight, like reading the weather, rationing fuel, and knowing which risks are worth it. The better you get, the further ahead you start thinking. And that's what makes it so engaging, and that's why it's a must-play in this genre. Next up, we have Valheim. You've probably heard the name before, but if not, it's a Norse-inspired survival game that quietly carved out a huge player base, and it's still one of the most well-rounded games in the genre. You start with basic tools and a few vague hints about what to do next. There's no quest log or step-by-step guidance, just enough information to get moving, and from there, it's up to you to explore, build, and figure out how to survive. Progress unfolds as you move through different biomes and take down bosses. Each area introduces new materials, threats, and crafting options, and every major boss you defeat shifts what you're able to do next. It's a steady loop of preparation, expansion, and escalation that doesn't force you forward but always leaves a clear path when you're ready to take it. The building system is one of the more grounded parts of the game. You can't just stack walls and call it a house. Structures need proper support, smoke has to vent, and bad weather will break things if you've cut corners. But the pieces fit together cleanly, and once you understand how it works, it feels natural to keep expanding. One cool mechanic are these portals that you use as a fast travel system. They have one key restriction: you can't carry metal through them. That single rule forces you to think more about route planning, outposts, and what gear you bring into new areas. And for anyone coming back to the game, the recent Ashlands update adds a massive volcanic zone to explore, along with over 30 new weapons, magical materials, siege tools, and some of the toughest enemies yet. Valheim is such an easy recommendation, and most of the reviews speaks for themselves. It's just a smartly built survival game that keeps you hooked for the long run. Sons of the Forest builds on what the original game did, but goes a lot deeper with the survival systems, building mechanics, and the player-driven choices. What starts as a search mission quickly shifts into something much stranger. And the longer you stick around, the weirder and more dangerous the island becomes. And one of the most noticeable improvements is how building works. Instead of placing down prefab blueprints, you're physically working with materials like chopping logs, cutting out windows, placing support beams, and shaping structures however you want. This freedom makes base building feel way more personal and creative than in most other games in the genre. The AI companions are also a huge step up. Kelvin, a quiet survivor you meet early on, can handle tasks like gathering wood or setting up shelter while you focus on other things. Later, Virginia might show up, a three-armed and three-legged mutant who will fight alongside you if you treat her well. They're useful additions, and managing them becomes a regular part of how you plan and survive. Combat is dangerous and a little unpredictable. Ammo is scarce, and firearms are more of a backup than a main strategy. Melee fights get frantic fast, and enemies react differently depending on your setup. Some might hang back or retreat, while others push harder when they know you're cornered. Exploration gives you plenty to chase, whether you're digging through cave systems, stumbling into hidden bunkers, or piecing together strange bits of tech scattered across the island. And once winter sets in, food becomes scarce, animals stop showing up, and the choices you made earlier start to matter more. If you like the first game or just enjoy survival games with a bit of weirdness and freedom, Sons of the Forest is definitely worth checking out. Next up, we have Raft, a survival game where your home isn't a shelter in the woods or a fixed outpost. It's a raft drifting through the ocean, and everything you need has to be pulled from the water or crafted on board. You start with barely enough space to stand, just a hook to catch floating debris and a shark that's a constant problem from the start. But things build quickly. What starts as a simple floating platform gradually evolves into a fully functional setup, complete with purifiers, storage, crafting stations, and the tools you need to begin exploring the world. As new systems unlock, you start wiring batteries, fueling engines, and steering toward distant locations picked up by your radio. There's a loose narrative that guides your journey. Notes and signals lead you to abandoned research sites, sunken settlements, and scattered traces of what came before. It's not a heavy story, but it gives you a reason to keep upgrading and moving into new regions. Raft works especially well in co-op. Typically one person handles fishing while someone else dives for scrap or expands the raft. The systems apply just enough pressure to keep things engaging without slipping into busy work, and the loop flows naturally once everyone finds their rhythm. Survival stays active across the whole run. You're always managing food, water, and oxygen while diving and watching for damage from the shark. The game keeps you involved without overwhelming you, even late in the run when your raft is fully decked out. Raft never tries to overcomplicate things, but it connects its systems well and gives you just enough to keep pulling forward. Once it clicks, it's easy to sink hours into it without realizing how far you've gone. Let's round this one up with Project Zomboid. It might look simple at first glance, but it's easily one of the deepest survival systems out there. You start in the middle of a zombie outbreak, not with some big objective, but with the quiet understanding that you're already on borrowed time. The whole experience leans into slow tension, detailed planning, and mistakes that pile up whether you notice them or not. And everything works against you from the start. A bite means infection, food spoils if left too long, and after a few weeks the power grid goes down and water stops running. The weather shifts with the seasons, making once safe routines harder to maintain. You can't just sit and wait things out. You have to prepare for each day, stock up what you can, and constantly reevaluate what might break down next. You're breaking into houses, ripping up sheets for bandages, hauling generators around, and hoping your makeshift base holds up just one more night. You can bleed out because you forgot extra bandages, get food poisoning from bad stew, or wreck your only car mid-escape and bring an entire horde to your doorstep. One of the reasons people stick with it is how flexible the systems are. You can build a stealthy survivor, a reckless brawler, or a mechanic who's terrified of blood. Every trait has a consequence, and even character creation feels deliberate. There's also full mod support and an active multiplayer scene, with everything from chill co-op to fully role-played servers where entire towns are player-run. This might be the perfect survival game if you're into zombies, base building, and watching how long you can last before everything goes sideways. Alright, that's all I have for this one. Survival games can be a mixed bag as some start strong and fall apart while others just feel like a chore, but these ones hold up. They're solid, they do what they set out to do, and they're worth checking out if you're looking for something new to sink time into. As usual, make sure to like and subscribe if you found this video useful in any way, and I'll see you in the next one.